And I think in South Africa, where there are many, many plus size women and very few places that cater for them, it's like you have such, I mean, you can look at like Thick Leonce and all the women she has who models her clothing. Why not pick one of them? And I think it's like almost plus size is what society can accept up being a certain plus size. Do you know what I mean? There's sort of a still desire. And I think even when you look at some plus size models, they have very much like the hourglass figure. Not really big stomachs, not lots of fupas, no back rolls or anything. So it's like, who are you really representing here? And I think going back to your friend as well, I think there is something to be said about like, just because I'm fat doesn't mean I don't work out and doesn't mean I don't eat well. But I think beyond that, it's like, even if I didn't eat well and even if I didn't work out, I still deserve some sort of respect. And I still deserve, and I should be able to be found desirable or wanted and stuff, no matter what my habits are. And I think it's also because no one looks at a thin person and says, well, I guess they don't go to gym. I guess they don't eat well. But those are the assumptions that are always made about fat people. So I mean, sorry, I feel like I'm speaking a lot, but I found that there was a time like through this journey where I felt that, okay, well, I go to the gym 5 times a week and I know about, caloric deficits. I'm like a better fat person. It's almost like trying to change, like sort of bring you out from the masses, or like I'm not like all the other fat people, because I still had a lot of negative ideas about fat people. And it's only when I started interrogating those and being like, why do I feel the need to differentiate myself from other fat people? Thin people don't feel the need to differentiate themselves from other thin people. I started realizing a lot of the biases that I had. And it's not easy to break those down. I definitely get caught up in them all the time. But yeah, that's what I'd say. So I think acknowledging that the issues faced by thin people are not sort of systemic, and skinny shaming sucks, but it's not nearly to the extent or as ingrained in society as fat shaming, is key to having that conversation.
Also a problem with the food reward system as well, not just the food that is nutrients. They're kind of like, oh, if I do some exercise, I get to have a chocolate mousse, or I get to have something like that. I think that's also an important point to bring up, because that's a real issue. It's saying like making yourself suffer until you get the food. What do you think about the ideas of obesity as a serious health risk versus fatness?
I do think that that is something to be said about your relationship with food. I think for me, I enjoy movement. So I enjoy going to the gym regardless of what I'm going to eat at the end of the day. So I feel like if you're only working out to eat something at the end, why not cut out the working out and just eat the something at the end? I think we always want to deny ourselves, because being healthy seems to be a denial factor, as in you're strong enough to get over your urges. But I think if you want to eat something, I think eat it. Listen to your body. I think that's a lot of what I've also been learning, is about listening. Am I actually hungry? Am I not? Is this, like, even being out in public and maybe being the only fat person at a table and being like, okay, I'm not going to eat all my food because I'm just going to think I'm a pig. So I'm going to eat like half of it and then take the rest away. When in fact, I would really like to eat whatever's on my plate. So I think, having a cheat day and sort of all that, I think, obviously, I do understand that it is what works for you and everyone has different goals health-wise. But I think we sort of allowing disordered eating, as I talked about, like intermittent fasting and keto diets, to kind of become mainstream, when it's like, this is not a normal way of eating. I think if you want to eat something, you should just eat it. And I don't think you should punish yourself with exercise, because then eventually you might never want to exercise again. And good on you if that's not what you want. But if you do want to develop a positive relationship with movement, then I don't think you should have to sloth to something to get something you want at the end. When you come home from varsity and you're like, if someone says I've gained weight, I will literally die. Because you're like, I was just trying to get through varsity. Like, I was literally just trying to live. And now I'm being told that I'm big or I'm this. And it's also like, why comment that? And why comment it in a negative way? I think obviously, like, I think being fat is sort of the worst thing you can do to yourself. Gaining weight. I think we also look at celebrities like Jessica Simpson, Tyra Banks, like when they sort of gained a whole lot of weight, and it was like, what are they doing? They're letting go of themselves. And it's like, what? You don't know what my circumstances are. I could have been going through health issues or whatever. But even besides that, even if I just got fat because I was eating what I wanted and it was great, then I should be allowed to live in that. I think it's the policing of people's bodies, when people say to you, and also the sort of policing we do to ourselves. And I think it's also the comparisons you make, like, oh, she's gained a lot of weight, at least I haven't, kind of thing. I think weights are often something that we bring up or we push around to diminish people or make them feel bad, because we know that at the end of the day, everyone in society should not want to be fat. But that should not be the case. If I want to be fat and live my best life, then I should be able to. And if I want to change that, I should also be able to, but I shouldn't have to change that because I feel like my life will be better when I'm skinny. I think understanding that everyone's fear is to be fat, and also feeling like, so what do people think of me? I think that's also been what's really difficult. It's like, I think of friends who've been like, oh, I'm getting fat right now. Oh, I'm gaining weight right now. Oh, no, 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 no. And it's like, girl, do you not see me? Like, I'm here, a fat person. So if you're saying those things
Yes.
about yourself, it's like you're saying the exact same thing about me. But it's always like, no, 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 not you. And it's like, it's kind of like being the special black, the one black girl with all the white friends. Like, oh, no, 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 not you. So now it's like back in the day to be the fat one and the black one. So it was like, no, 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 no. You're just super special. You're just like you're our Adonis girl. So it's also been sort of unlearning those things of like, even, I mean, like when my parents say it, it's like, I'm your child. Like, do you not see me? Like, I'm in front of you. And understanding that fear of fat really transcends all relationships, all sort of empathy for other people. And I just wish people could feel like they can just fluctuate in their body healthily, um, and in a way that they don't have to fear going on either end of the scale, really. And then the third one being fatness versus obesity. So I feel like when I first started like reading into like body positivity and stuff, I was sort of the mind of like, okay, but like being fat does put you at risk of more things, more health concerns. That's just the way health is, that's just the way the body works. But then as I started reading more, there, yes, it is a contributing factor, but it's not the only factor. And I feel like I shouldn't have to. I mean, we look at smokers, obviously there are a whole lot of health concerns there, but they don't receive the kind of systemic shaming that fat people do. So why can't we see? I think maybe it's because nicotine is addictive and they didn't have a choice. But fat, you can choose to starve yourself. Just be stronger than the cake, you know. And I think if we change the way we look at those things, it's like it's the same sort of outcome. I'm choosing to be fat. I may be at risk of more diseases, but it doesn't mean that. I mean, so that's sort of the life choice I've made, and I should still get quality care. And I think what a lot of fat people face is that when they do go to hospitals and stuff, they'll be told, no, lose weight and then we'll deal with the issue. But it's like, I'm deserving of full medical care despite what I look like. So you can definitely look under that fat Mr. Doctor 8 years at wherever, and you can find what the problem is. Like, I shouldn't have to feel scared to go to the doctor or know that the only response I'm going to get is lose weight when I have what could be a serious medical problem. And I think, considering how, I think there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about how Black women face a lot of issues in the healthcare system. Black people are perceived to not feel as much pain. Now, you're fat and you're Black. It's like they're really just kicking you out as you enter the door. So I think we need to change the perception of medical professionals in that way. And I mean, I guess if that's the way that science works, it is. But I think, as I said, yeah, changing the way medical professionals deal with fat people.
In terms of healthcare and how we always talk about like overweight and obesity, and we use the BMI, which basically looks at your height and your weight and basically make an assumption whether or not this person is at risk. But we've always been taught that BMI is the wrong way to do it. It's not a good indication, because your weight could be because of muscles, because of water, fluids, and all those other things, but we still use it. And we know that BMI is based on a European body and doesn't really account for other ethnic groups. but we still use it, and we still use it as a risk factor. So I was just saying, like, if your doctor's saying something like just lose weight and that should help it, and it's still not helping, then obviously it's a cop out. You should be addressing what the real issue is. And it basically drifts people away from seeking healthcare, because it could be something that's not even related to weight, and people will be like, oh, it's probably because of my weight, and then they don't access healthcare. So I think it was such an important point that Fiona brought up, that in all spheres we need to think about how, like, our interactions with people affects their future and how they perceive healthcare, and this idea of being healthy, etc., shouldn't be something as health professionals we kind of tell people, oh, if you bigger, you automatically unhealthy.
Not having sort of any control in the regard where, I agree with what you're saying about how you shouldn't really put a suffering before the reward. You don't have to treat it as a reward. But I think there's a lot of psychological benefit in delaying short-term gratification for long-term benefit. And I think that's also sort of a different aspect to look at it. And again, this is not necessarily like, shaming people and telling people not to enjoy food and to, enjoy their meals and things like that. But there is a very strong connection with delaying that short-term gratification. So, I mean, for example, the fast food thing. Like if we were to eat fast food because I feel like compulsively eating fast food all the time, it has a really serious effect on my mental health in general, because I'm now not allowing myself to actually control those urges. And controlling those urges actually sort of, it seeps into other aspects of your life. Like when you need to do work instead of playing, when you need to, just do certain things instead of other things. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. That's just kind of a mentality that I have. But again, it's not about necessarily the concept of fatness here, but I think it's about having some kind of self-control does actually seep into many other aspects of your life, and we can't actually ignore that. But that's just my opinion.
No, I feel like I definitely agree. Like, I think we all have that, like, work now, then I can chill later kind of vibe. But I think it's the way it's in the context of sort of weight and health and stuff. I think it takes on a different sort of, it's not, oh, let me work out and then treat it's normally a punishment factor. It's normally I shouldn't be eating this. I'm not allowed to eat things like this. That's very restrictive, and then you end up maybe binging after, or hating the food you're eating. So I think I do get what you're saying, that self-control in that is important. But I think in the sort of crusade of never wanting to be fat, we sort of take these, I guess, normal sort of impulses, or not impulses, like habits, like having self-control, and it becomes warped and twisted in a way that feeds into this whole toxic diet culture.
Especially with diet culture and all of that, it's more so a quick solution. Like you do have people who are like a vegan, healthy lifestyle, but those lifestyles aren't necessarily for you to lose weight. It's a dietary thing, 10 days, I'm going to refer to that in my question later, but it's like losing 10 kgs in 10 days, and then afterwards, like the kind of discipline that you get from other lifestyle things is, for me, is a little bit different to like dietary things, only because it's given in kind of short bursts.
I think the other thing is, like, there's a connotation that fat equals like laziness, or it relates to work ethic. And I think that's, for me, where the real toxicity comes in. I was treated differently, specifically by men, when I lost the weight. It was very interesting to me. And, it speaks a lot about a woman's value in society and how much that is her body. I'm literally the same person. But the fact that I'm literally a bit lighter, like, now you want to be my best friend.
Yeah. And it's like, I think for me as well, it's like, okay, you're starting to get more attention. People are sort of complimenting you on how you look and all of that. But it's like, I still feel bad in my body. So what is the truth? You know, it's like you think, okay, I'll lose weight, people will compliment me more and I should feel great about myself. But it's like it's only temporary, and it's like I know if I were to gain that weight, then those compliments would subside and I would go back to feeling horrible. But it's almost like for me, I found, because I'd lost weight. When I say I was just at the gym, you know, my thing, all of a sudden the scale said another number, and it was like it almost wanted me to pursue weight loss like as a goal. And then that's when a lot of sort of the toxicity around diet culture just started overtaking my life.
I made a rule with myself to never compliment someone in terms of weight or weight loss.
And I think that also comes from knowing people, and also knowing that it's not your place to compliment random people you don't know. Like, be cognizant of your relationship with that person. And you may be aware of the issues that they've faced, so you know how to maybe compliment them in a way that's empowering and affirming to them, and not a way that, compliments can be destructive.
I wanted to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for this presentation. I feel really seen, which is amazing, because I'm not the smallest of girls. And just as a small little anecdote, just to add spice, I suppose, I've been told so many times, like, what I look like is problematic. I remember my sister came to pick me up when I was in grade 9, so before I came to Saints, and there was a boy there who I'd done school with him since grade 1. And he had a crush on my sister, like the biggest crush. And I remember him coming to like chat with her and, you know, whatever. And before we left, he said, you know what, Oba, like, if you were just like a little bit lighter skinned and you lost a bit of weight, like, I would find you attractive. Like, maybe there would be something for us there. And I was like, what do you mean?
I hate men.
Yeah, it was wild. And another person saying, yeah, I saw your body and I was scared. That really got me, like, what do you mean? So thank you so much. I feel really seen. My question has to do with, so we spoke about like life choices, right? And we spoke about, if it's my decision to be fat, then that's my decision, right? I'm just interested, and I suppose maybe we can steer it to sort of fat phobia, body positivity, and family making. And I think that's really interesting in the sense that, you know, sometimes we look at women who are fat, for example, and who fall pregnant. And then when they lose the child, for whatever reason, people immediately attribute that to their weight and immediately say, oh, she was irresponsible. Why do you think that she would even be able to keep the baby? You know, like those types of things. Another example is a mother who has children who are also fat. She might be big herself, her children are also big. And we tend to shame the mother and say, how did you let that happen to your kids? And I'm just interested to hear what people's thoughts are on that specifically.
Just on the first thing, on fat phobia and family making, I think that one thing I found was when I was younger and I sort of started my period, let's say grade 7, in grade 9 or 10, it was still kind of irregular. And I was like, it's been a few years now. I remember going to the doctor and he was like, well, you just need to lose weight and it will become regular. And it's like, cheap till this day, even if I've lost weight, my period is still irregular. So clearly there is something underlying. And it almost like deters you from even trying to figure out what the issue is, because you know it's always going to come back to, well, lose weight first and then we'll deal with the issue. That's just my personal experience. I think that a lot of the time parents are also seen as failures if their kids are fat. It's like, you should have run around with them more, girl. You should have gone to those mommy and me swimming classes.
Yeah.
And I think it's also interesting how a lot of the burden is often on the mother for how she raised the kids, but not as a family unit. No one really blames the dad if their kids are fat.
Do we sometimes look for representation just for the sake of representation, at the expense of sort of the people that we're trying to represent? What I mean by this is, we have people who are, you know, fat people who are in movies and who are in films. And oftentimes they play very comical characters. And there's something about that just frustrates me, you know? And I'm wondering, you know, someone will argue, well, there's already a person there who's fat, and so you should be happy there's representation. But should we not sort of be able to pick and choose how we are represented or how people are represented in the media?
Just to add to what you're saying about like representation in movies and stuff like that, like it's quite a like there's not enough um representation, because you'll have plus size models who aren't actually plus size, who have like skinny waist, hourglass figures, and then you'll have Precious, and then all the fat comical Medeas, they're all like typical fat. There's no in between where it's like, okay, from the middle, the 30s, 30 whatever size to size whatever, you guys are in the kind of missing middle. Like, here's representation like for you guys.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's always very extreme, and it's like there's no nuance. The word fat had such negative connotations that I was like, I will die if someone calls me fat. Now I'm like, call me fat, call it, say it to my face. That's what I am. That's what, you know what I mean? Like, I had to reclaim that. I had to not be scared to be like, I am fat. I had to be scared not to, like, and even like the delusion. Like, when I was younger, I used to just be buying clothes that were too small, and I'm like, girl, it is gonna
I'm
be
gonna fit it.
motivation. You're gonna fit that top, and it's like the delusion, like
Yeah.
not wanting to accept. And I think it's also another thing, and I think it's something I deal with now, is that I've always wanted a tattoo, but for a long time I was like, I can't put a tattoo on this body because it's not my final body. When I'm skinny and I have the perfect body, then I can like get a tattoo on it. And it's seeing what I am now as something that's transient, something that I can't feel home in, something that I can't feel grounded in. It's always like, no, no, this is just a phase because you can't be living your life like this. There's no way you're going to be fat for your whole life. But now it's like I can come to terms with the fact that I need to come to terms, and I'm working on coming to to terms with the fact that I could be this size the rest of my life, and that's okay.
Sometimes it's not necessarily beneficial for someone to say, oh, Fiona, you've lost weight, you're looking so good, you know. But then if, like, is there a place where like someone losing weight should be complimented? Like, because some people do like that instant gratification that like their hard work is, you know, showing
Yeah.
to other people. So how do you balance the two?
So I think I've had this conversation with someone before, and for me, it's that you should not. Because if you've lost weight, there's nothing to compliment. That's sort of the stance I've taken of like, okay, you've just gotten smaller, and that smallness doesn't mean beauty. That smallness doesn't mean health. That smallness, it doesn't mean anything. It's just you've changed the size of your body. I think when we start complimenting and saying, oh, you look good, you look this, it's reinforcing that smaller equals you look good. And I think we must have also had this conversation about, is wanting to intentionally lose weight a fat phobic thing. So if I decide as a fat person, okay, today I want to lose 20 kilos, from my reading and my understanding, that's inherently fat phobic, because I shouldn't want to lose weight. Because what would losing weight do for me? Will it make me prettier? No, because being skinny isn't prettier. Will it make me healthier? Not necessarily. So I am of the mind of, I don't compliment people on their weight loss, weight gain, nothing. I don't say it.